Marathon's lore runs extremely deep, and to be honest with you, I'm not an expert in that department. But for this video, I wanted to explore the world of Marathon and take a look at the possible PvE enemies that we might be fighting based on what was in the original game. So I did a bunch of research around the aliens that were in the original trilogy, and I found more information than I can even digest. Let's go. Now, obviously, all I have to reference and show you in this video is sort of this old pixel art stuff that we can find on the internet from the original games, because we don't have any real information. However, as of tomorrow, we should see a gameplay trailer. So if you're watching this video after that gameplay trailer is live on April 12th, then there's possibly going to be new information, and I would look at my newest video for that information. That being said, we did get a slight glimpse of one of the original enemies in the original Marathon, the Spht. It was shown in the original teaser trailer that we got from Bungie, and it was just a split second of this, but it was recognizable, and this actually confirms to me that Bungie will be bringing back these older enemies. So let's start with the main antagonist of the original trilogy, the Pfhor. The Pfhor are the enemy that you experience the most throughout the series. It's the most common enemy. The Pfhor were the ones that led the invasion of the Marathon colony ship, and later in the series they invaded Earth as well. They are a super cruel, imperialistic type race that actually enslaved other alien races in the game. Not only that, but they actually had a hierarchical structure of their military. The lowest tier of that being the fighters. These were the Pfhor that you would encounter a lot, especially early on in the game. They were lightly armed, they didn't have a lot of armor, they're pretty easy to beat. You could do it mostly with your fists or a pistol, and it really wasn't that difficult. This is just the entry-level sort of infantry type Pfhor. Troopers were basically like the fighters, but like slightly better. They were bulkier, they were better equipped, and sometimes they had visible armor upgrades. In Marathon 1, they had dual-wield assault rifles and were notably tougher to kill. Above that, you have the Hunters. The Hunters were like the heavy infantry. They were armored, they were tall, and they were meant to be like sort of this one step above those fighters. These Pfhor were said to be like cybernetically enhanced versions of the original Pfhor, or they were actually just an entirely different race that the Pfhor enslaved, but it's kind of wishy-washy in the lore on that one. Next, we had the Enforcers. These were the special forces with the energy-based weapons. They had stun guns and plasma pistols. They also had higher status than the fighters, and they were often seen policing and commanding them in the game. In the new Marathon, I expect to see a wide variety of Pfhor. Now, if they're not in the game, I think that would be a travesty, considering this is the main enemy that we are fighting in the original trilogy, and the games are set in the same universe or the same world. But next up, let's talk about the Spht. Now, this one you get to experience early on in the series. It's sort of a shock when you see it, and there are various different types and levels of these. But according to the lore, the Spht are somewhat neutral to the player, except for they were enslaved by the Pfhor and meant to fight the player. But later on in the series, they actually become allies. So it's going to be interesting to see how Bungie adapts that for the new Marathon and where in the timeline this takes place. Because towards the end of the original trilogy, the Spht actually were a group that became allies with us, and they fought against their enslaver. And the group that actually did that was the Spht KR or the Spht Kur. I don't know how to say this, I apologize, but these names are all very difficult to say. This group was sort of like a splinter group of the Spht, and they fled their home planet while the Pfhor were sort of taking over the Spht. They're a little bit mysterious, and they are obviously technologically advanced, but they played a huge role in the larger galactic conflict. The next one is the Drenal. This is also known as a Hulk. These guys I really hope to see in the game. They're scary, they're big, they're kind of slow as well. I would love to see sort of an adaptation of this, maybe a slightly bigger Hulk, and it's something that maybe you would fight as sort of part of a public event or like server-wide event. That would be really awesome. And then obviously you would fight over the loot after they were done. Considering that Marathon as an extraction shooter is going to be a PvPvE experience, I think that would actually be fitting. Just a little bit about the Hulks. They were also enslaved by the Pfhor, and they were used basically for just brute combat. And finally, let's talk about the Flicta. Again, sorry if I'm butchering the names. If you're like a Marathon lore genius or junkie, I apologize. I'm new to this. I'm just doing my research. The Flicta were sort of an amphibious type creature, and it had this giant mouth right on the chest with big teeth. This was scary. I'm literally getting the chills now. Such a scary character to see. And with modern graphics and new lighting and darkness, if you see one of these guys in the new game, I definitely anticipate some jump scares. I would love to see the Flicta in the new Marathon. They look super scary and something you just really wouldn't want to run into. Now, in the original, they seem to be semi-intelligent and really aggressive. They attack all the time. And the way the story goes, it's almost like they were mutated by the Pfhor or created by the Pfhor, or potentially some sort of environmental damage. One thing is really clear though, this race of aliens is absolutely feral. Now, there are other types of enemies in the series, like say the wasps or even the bobs that would be suicidal and run towards you and blow you up. But hopefully this gives you a small look into what we could be experiencing with the new game. I really appreciate you watching the video, and if you found some value in this, do consider subscribing because this channel is all about Marathon. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll catch you on the next one. Trigger out.